because we're live.
Which part?
No, the part you were just talking about.
This is the worst. Chase, you've never announced that you're going live before.
I know.
Usually we're just in the middle of a compelling conversation, being our charismatic, beautiful selves.
I didn't know where Shane was going with the story.
So now
I didn't know where he was going with it.
This time you're like, we're live, and now we don't have anything to talk about. Now we're just sitting here looking like a bunch of assholes.
So we got one good thing to talk about. Well, it's not good, but what the fuck? We can do good. Go check out my pinned tweet. Shane is the worst. That's me. At Shane is the worst because it's Twitter. So it's kind of like Jeopardy with you have to ask it in the form of a question.
Who are you, Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. So anyway, go look at my pinned tweet. I think a lot of you know Dominic, and if you don't, I don't really give a shit. Just be a good human being and go give like $5 to someone that could really use the money. He's blind now. He's been going blind for a while. And now he's actually on dialysis for kidney failure because he has diabetes, which is a rough deal. Andy Singleton and I were talking about it last night, and Andy said, you know what, let's start this up for him. I said, all right, let's do this. So go give them money. And there's a bunch of best ball leagues that are starting. If you follow Bob Gilchrist, and if anyone's watching, I don't know, we have anyone watching tonight?
Yeah, we got a good amount of people on right now.
I'll go ahead and if you join one of those best ball leagues, I'll send you some Dynasty Trades HQ koozies and stickers.
Nice.
All you got to do is show me that you signed up.
I signed up, and personally, all I've ever wanted was a Dynasty Trades HQ cozy for my nice Canadian steam whistle. So
okay, well, Canada, I don't know.
You call it a steam whistle?
Well, that's what it is. It's Steam Whistle Brewery.
Oh God, I thought you were talking about.
Sorry, Kate. Sorry. Now we're distracting from Shane's beautiful message to bash Canada. So
that's it. Go do that. And now let's play some fantasy football, guys.
Let's do it. Here we go. Oops, I was a little late on that.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
what's up, and welcome on the night of the Canadian Football League draft to our CFL draft special. I'm kidding.
Oh my God, that was so loud.
How are you yelling? Jesus Christ. What's that all boot?
I'm having problems today. Is there audio issues?
You're good now. I think you're just yelling. You're yelling into my ears. And
look, I'm just trying to be enthusiastic.
I thought the CFL was merging with the XFL.
Not yet, Shane.
Yeah, that didn't happen?
I can't wait.
Look, we have the CFL has their draft tonight because we have to wait and see which of our Olympian track stars get drafted as handcuffs to the Panthers, and then which ones we can draft into our league to represent our proud nation.
The CFL doesn't draft like 7th round guys in the first round of their draft. What do they?
No, and they usually don't draft kickers before they draft running backs, like what happened to Chase's favorite player.
You know who would be like the best XFL team this year? Would be the Steelers. The Steelers would crush it. I mean, I'm sorry, in the CFL. The Steelers would crush it in the CFL.
Why?
Like, they would
not have
destroy
offensive lines in the CFL?
I don't think so, right? Isn't that what it is? It's like 7 people on the field or like 4 people on the field or something. It's like flag football, isn't it?
No.
I thought that's what CFL was.
No, it's basically if every team played like the Bills and they just have like 8 wide receivers and then they all run a bunch of motion. That's the CFL. By the way,
that's the Steelers.
We have a guest.
That is. By the way, we do have a guest.
Oh yeah.
Look, when we have external guests, I start by gassing them up and I give them their flowers. When it's Taylor, we talk about the Canadian Football League.
I've been waiting for my intro.
No, we are very, very, very happy to be welcomed by the host of You Can't Be Serious, lifelong Bengals fan and Jamar Chase supporter.
That's right.
Taylor Cornell. How you doing, Taylor?
I am doing outstanding. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
First time, long time.
What's going on in
First
your
time, long
life?
time.
Aren't you happy to be on a podcast with Shane? That's a lifelong goal of most people.
Yes, I did tell him earlier I was very nervous, and then he's out here saying he's going to give away some memorabilia, and if he autographs it, there is no telling how much money I will just throw out there.
Oh, well, definitely. Yeah.
Seal it with a kiss too, if you don't mind.
Look, here's the thing. So I'm really, as all my patrons from Dynasty Trades HQ know, I hand wrote all the like swag to them, like the letters and the envelopes, and I got the big yellow envelopes and I licked it and then I taped it and then I wrote on it with my I look like a serial killer. So a few of their wives were scared when they saw it in the mail. They're like, "What the fuck? Like, there might be a bomb in the mailbox." So you go get it, Bob. But yeah. So no, definitely.
Are you an all capital letters guy? You strike me as an all capital letters guy.
No.
Okay.
It mostly,
I'm an all caps guy.
My dad is.
It looks like I'm illiterate, and.
Wait,
also,
looks like or are? I thought you were.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a strong word, and also numbers. I'm not great with them. And then for some reason,
numerate.
Not really.
You'd be able to spell that if you were literate.
I do sevens weird. I do them European.
You put the cross in?
Yeah. And
I do
the same
too.
thing with zeros. Yeah.
I don't do those zeros, just with sevens.
Like, got people in the chat here talking sports with Manny, Dustin Ross, and Bobby Bruce, all saying hello. What's up, Manny? What's up, Dustin? What's up,
He's
Bobby?
talking about your Bush League beer.
The steam whistle? That's because Dustin's a member of the great Canadian nation. He's a fellow beaver, so he knows what's a good beer.
That's what we call Canadians, is beavers?
That's what we're calling them tonight. Let's actually start the show because Shane's on a tight clock. I don't know why other people would ever book Shane for a podcast.
What's my show?
I thought that we took that. Oh, that's why.
It's one of my other shows. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see.
Yeah.
It's all making sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going to get moving. As you can probably expect, this is not actually a Canadian Go Blue Bombers. Yeah, go Blue Bombers.
Really? Who are you, Shane? Getting distracted by the comments?
Yeah, I always aspire to be Shane.
Please.
He has 2 shows tonight. Look, no, we're not going to talk about the CFL draft. We're going to talk about the NFL draft that just happened. We have a bunch of set questions, but by all means, if you folks in the chat have questions, please make sure to ask your questions in the chat, and we'll get you our thoughts on those. But let's start it off with the team that picked at number 5, since we have an official correspondent.
Yep.
Live from Cincinnati.
Taylor
Cornell. Some have said, Taylor, I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if you spend a lot of time on Twitter, but some have said that the Bengals made a catastrophic mistake that went down as absolute malpractice.
That is, yeah.
And in fact, there were memes made, of quarterbacks.
Don't start.
So I just want to know, why do the Bengals hate their quarterback and wish injury upon him?
I can't even figure out which meme I disliked more. The one that was, he can't make a pass because he has no offensive line. The one where it was the New Jersey reveal, but instead of white, it's like green stained grass stain one. Or the one where they're zooming in on the scar of his knee during the Jersey reveal. All of which were just poor taste, everybody. Poor taste. We don't hate our quarterback. In fact, we love our quarterback. And that is why the Cincinnati Bengals made some moves this offseason to address some concerns along their offensive line. It just was not the one move that everybody wanted to see made. And, I am okay with people slandering Cincinnati. I just want people to be realistic with the fact that they have a bias against the Bengals. And that's all right. Just admit it. Don't pretend. Don't change your name to catastrophic mistake, because the Miami Dolphins have an offensive line just as bad as we do, and they passed on Sewell and took a far inferior receiver in Jalen Waddle, and everybody praises their draft. I just don't get it.
Look, I would never, ever want to say anything bad about the Cincinnati Bengals draft. And, we were always hearing, right, that you should prioritize wide receiver at the front of the draft because other positions fall, right? And so they did a really good job. They took Chase in the first because they knew that their kicker would be available in round 5.
You have not watched any Bengals games because kicker is a need. We hold our breaths every extra point, every field goal beyond 30 yards. In round 5, I am okay locking up
so
the next Justin Tucker.
You reached for a kicker in the second round or third round. I don't even know what it was. You reached on
round.
Well, and the offensive lineman that you reached on.
Oh, no, that was that was the best one.
Jackson Carman.
Shane. Jackson Carman is not a reach. He doesn't even have arm length. So how can you reach on an offensive tackle with woefully short arms?
So listen, I didn't want Jackson Carman. I would have preferred they stay at 38 and take Eichenberg or Tevin Jenkins. I would have preferred that.
Dude, Tevin Jenkins would have been home run.
They chose not to. Okay. I am still convinced that as long as Jackson Carman is an average NFL player, that represents a major upgrade along our offensive line. That's how bad it was. You just
you didn't want Penny Sewell.
Yeah, because I got Jamar Chase, okay? I got a number 1 orange Bengals jersey on its way to my house right now. You know what I wouldn't be ordering is a Sewell jersey. Not happening.
I feel like this is colored by fantasy too much. You're doing the fantasy thing where it's like, no, it's fine that they got Chase because they're going to throw for 6,000 yards. But yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow is going to die.
No,
I think my favorite thing was like, did Thomas say this? He's like, hey, at least, his receivers are going to be busy running. They're going to be running a lot. They're going to be running back to pick Justin Burrow up off his ass after they run straight streaks down the field because it's going to happen time and time again.
Okay, so when do you think it is acceptable to make a judgment call on the trade back in round 2? So like after rookie season, you look and say compare Tevin Jenkins say directly to Jack Carman, or because I'm actually very curious about what the general, when can you look back and decide how successful a draft was? Do you have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years?
The moment that Joe Burrow ends up on IR again.
My gosh, that's not happening.
3 years.
I think 3 years is fair. I think 3 years is fair.
Hey, Cooter.
I'm team process over results. So I think right now seems like a good time.
If I knew how to change my name, I would.
What? Rest in peace, Joe. Click on your name in the picture below the screen.
So let's talk about fantasy, though. So what's this do to T. Higgins? Some of us had high hopes for him. Wide receiver one day. Those hopes have clearly been beaten to death and then brought back to life and then stomped in the skull and beaten to death again. But what's his upside now?
It's an unpopular take in the fantasy community, but I think the sell window for T. Higgins has passed because everyone's saying can't wait for Chase to go there because then buy him, which, if there's a major discount, definitely buy him. But I think he was coming off of like a ADP for startups was a low end wide receiver 1. He was like right around 11 or 12. And he's coming off a 900-yard season. So we're not putting him at 11 or 12 because we hope he duplicates last year. This year, we're expecting a step up. We're expecting he's an 1,100, 1,200, 1,300-yard guy. I don't think you're getting that now with Jamar Chase. So the sell window, a year from now, I would be shocked if he's maybe top 15, but he's not going to be sniffing top 11, 12-ish. So I think the sell, again, not a sell low, he's a great player and he's like 22 years old. So there's no reason to try to move him necessarily for pennies, but for pennies, Sewell.
There we go.
I knew it was coming, so I just finished it myself.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So I think the time I was trying to move him in one league that I had him in prior to the draft for a major haul, but nobody was paying what I thought was a fair price for him. So I just held on to him, but I think it caps his upside. I think he's a fine receiver. He'll be 1,000 to maybe 1,100 yards, but that's not really where we typically are going to consistently be ranking our wide receiver 1s. I think it's just his ceiling's capped a little bit now.
I just want to jump in quick and just say, first off, what's up, Cooter? I see Cooter in the chat. What's up, Jacob in the chat? And Youngeen Ty, if I screwed up that name, I apologize. Jacob raises the point, and this has sort of been my point with T. Higgins. As a T. Higgins supporter, right after the season, before there was any thought that they were going to go out and draft Jamar Chase, because, when people thought they were going to do the sensible thing, I had T. Higgins up around the wide receiver 10 range, and once I started to read the tea leaves and it seemed like Chase was going to go there, I moved him down to wide receiver, I think 14, which I think is more appropriate. Jakob in the chat says, you don't think Burrow can support, and that's where I'm still a T. Higgins optimist overall. Is they're going to be a very pass-happy offense, you'd think, right? Their defense probably still not super great yet. And in general, Zach Taylor has had one of the highest neutral situation pass rates in the league. Do you think there's a scenario where Joe Burrow can support both Higgins and Chase as top 15 wide receivers? Maybe not this year in Chase's rookie year, but if you're projecting Dynasty out at the future of this team, can this be sort of a Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Dallas situation with almost co-wide receiver ones, or at least two guys that can be borderline wide receiver ones?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted today, and I guess I shouldn't have put easily in there because that was the word people were getting hung up on. But I tweeted today that I think the Bengals, and I said easily, I didn't really mean easily, but it wouldn't be unheard of for them to have a wide receiver 1 and 2 wide receiver 2s for fantasy. I think Boyd will be a low-end wide receiver 2 because he was kind of volume driven. He's not going to be getting a ton of touchdowns to help buoy any of his stats. Higgins, I think, though, is going to be right around that high-end wide receiver 2 range. And I think Jamar Chase going forward is going to be the low-end mid wide receiver 1. And I was trying to look back at target data from the last few years. And yeah, it's kind of hard to like look at some of these teams that were throwing historically, like the Bucks in 2019 or whatever, when Jameis Winston was throwing the ball all over the place. Like, yes, he supported Evans, he supported Godwin just fine, but they also were throwing the ball like 650 times, which it's hard to project that year in and year out. But I mean, even last year when I looked at the Carolina Panthers, they didn't throw an ungodly amount, but they had 3 players that were all at or above 100 targets. And I think if you can get all 3 of those guys 100 targets, I think Chase probably is in the 130 to 140 target range. T. Higgins is in the 110, 115 range, and Boyd's right around 100 targets. So I think Boyd's the one that takes the biggest hit, but he's still going to be a usable fantasy option. So to me, it almost seems like Boyd would be the buy if you like betas like Jakob does, because everybody's way low on Boyd, I would assume. And I think he's going to be an okay low-end wide receiver 2. I guess I'm not really actively going out and getting low-end wide receiver 2s, though.
I mean, Cincinnati's defense is very subpar, and we could see just high-scoring game after high-scoring game. Don't forget, Joe Burrow was on pace last year to shatter the rookie passing record for attempts before he got hurt. Like, he was on pace to shatter it. Like, it wasn't even going to be remotely close. Shatter.
Not you're going to say shatter his knee.
No, that's already going to be a given. Like, we already know that.
He wasn't on pace to do that. He achieved that.
Yeah, he was averaging 40 attempts per game. I'm gonna go, and I hate this word, regression almost dictates that you're not going to do that for a full season.
Yeah,
we saw what happens when you try to do that for a full season.
Why are you such a nerd?
But he can still attempt 36, like regress by 4 attempts or so, and still end up supporting what Taylor was talking about. So
Shane, top of your head, 36 attempts a game is how many for the season?
Oh, that's at least 563.
It's 576, isn't it?
Actually, it's 612 because we got 17 games this year.
Not very good. See, I don't count that 17th game. That doesn't count.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that.
Gosh darn it! I was right on a 16-game pace, and then you ruined it. Whatever.
I agree with Taylor because look, AJ Green. We talked about it before. Had 100 targets in that offense last year.
He was terrible,
and he was just trash. Just absolute trash.
I mean, it's not an offense that's going to target the tight ends ever. And as much as they talk up Joe Mixon every single offseason, I'm not convinced they're going to all of a sudden give him 75 targets. It's just not happening. So I think that offense passing volume is going to be funneled to those 3 guys. So for to see the 3 of them, however many pass attempts it is and targets specifically, to see them at between 60 and 65% of the target share for that team as a whole, I think is completely doable.
Now, I'm going to need to funnel this conversation forward because we've talked about the Bengals, more than anyone really wants to, I think.
That's not true.
At least that is until Taylor gets his soon-to-come Bengals-only podcast.
Dude, I will bring the Bengals into every conversation we have, so just wait for it.
All right, well, I will. I can't wait until best draft pick, kicker. All right, so we're going to do this. It's going to be a rapid fire roundtable, and we're going to get through as many as we can. I know Shane has to leave early. I know Taylor's a family man. So, if this goes late and people have questions, Chase and I'll probably stick around, or at least I will. I don't have a life. But I'm going to run through these, and everyone give sort of your quick 30-second or so answer here. And for folks in the chat, as we go, we're going to get through a bunch of these questions. If you have player-specific questions or more general questions, fire away, and we will get to it as soon as we can, 100%. So first off, does not necessarily need to be a fantasy-related answer. Who was the best pick of the NFL draft? And we'll start with Taylor, our lovely guest.
Yes, thank you. I am lovely. I went with Mac Jones here, and I went from the value perspective. And we've seen teams that don't have good quarterbacks. You are nothing in the NFL. And I don't know whether Mac Jones is going to be good. I'm not one that has a super strong opinion on him one way or the other. But I think that to not have to give up any draft capital, to have him fall into your laps in the middle of the first round and probably be an immediate upgrade over Cam Newton, and who knows, we'll see down the road what he becomes, was a steal. Regardless of what you think about Mac Jones, the chance to have gotten your franchise quarterback. I mean, think about what San Francisco gave up. Yes, I like Trey Lance better than Mac Jones. Look at what Chicago gave up. Yes, I like Justin Fields better than Mac Jones, but we are projecting. So would I be shocked out of my mind if Mac Jones was the second or third best out of this class? I mean, not necessarily. Things happen.
Yeah, sure would.
I would not be shocked.
I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Trevor Lawrence.
Shane, why don't you go next? Because Taylor is so nice and diplomatic, and I like to go to the other end of the spectrum, which is you.
I'd be fucking gobsmacked if fucking Mac Jones is the second best quarterback in this fucking draft. Like, if that happens.
Say third best.
Third best?
So you got Lawrence, and you'll say he's a shoo-in. So then
Lance, Fields. No, if he's fourth, I could see fourth. I could see fourth. Fourth is within reach.
Okay.
I love Justin Fields. I loved it for the Bears because their franchise is just an absolute train wreck, and they needed a quarterback. And then it got me thinking, like, maybe Matt Nagy might not be bad. Maybe it was just that Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles are really bad, which is probably both are true. That's probably more the case.
Yeah.
But I don't fucking gobsmacked. I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is the type of player that can overcome bad coaching, where I think Justin Fields,
not.
Yeah. Well, he showed us that he couldn't, but Justin Fields can. Like, Justin Fields is going to play off script and go, what the fuck was that play? No, I'm just going to run for 40 yards, you dickwad. Like, call better plays. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I love the Justin Fields because it's good to see the Bears get an actual franchise quarterback, and I can't wait to see Allen Robinson with a real quarterback for the first time in his career.
Hallelujah. Chase, what do you got? Best pick of the first round.
So you took mine. I had to go a different route, but this is more of a value pick, right?
That's funny because we that was my backup, is the one that you took. So we're totally on the same page, which is so weird for us.
It is. That is That's very cute. Strange, actually. It is kind of cute though. Like, I kind of want to reach up and pinch your cheeks. I don't know. Nope, I can't do it. All right, no. But sitting there and looking at it, I went with Christian Darrisaw from the Vikings. I pretty much had Darrisaw go into the Chargers, which was one pick earlier.
Same.
Obviously, when Slater fell, it pushed back Darrisaw. So I thought that the Vikings would take Darrisaw. Although if Darrisaw came off the board, then I thought they were going to take Elijah Vera Tucker. Turns out that the Jets wanted to trade up and get Elijah Vera Tucker, which allowed the Vikings to move back. And I was like, damn, that's not really a smart move for the Vikings, because you know what? The Raiders, they need, tackles. Like, they need offensive linemen. There's probably not going to be, Darrisaw's not going to be there for the Vikings. They really need offensive linemen. Well, guess what? Darrisaw was still there when they picked. And they ended up, acquiring future picks for it. And hands down, it was one of my favorite picks the entire draft, outside of Slater actually going to the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I was on a live show with Tom Tipple and Big Billy and a rotating crew that included Chase and Taylor at times. And I basically was saying three things really, the whole draft. One was, why aren't you taking Justin Fields? Then eventually, someone took Justin Fields. And then I just kept saying, the next team should take Rashawn Slater. The next team should take Rashawn Slater. And then eventually I was saying, the next team should take Christian Darrisaw. Next team should take Christian Darrisaw. And so I went with Slater, and I think Darrisaw for the same reason. I mean, especially with the Charger situation, last year we saw that their offensive line really broke down towards the end of the year, and Herbert was having to get rid of the ball fast, and the offense just started to become a little bit discombobulated in certain games. If they're able to protect him, he's got Keenan Allen out there, who's an absolute stud, of course. He's got Donald Parham, the GOAT, out there at tight end. Of course, Austin Eckler is one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. Mike Williams, and they took this Josh Palmer guy who exists.
Josh Palmer.
He's Canadian.
Who the fuck is Josh Palmer?
Third round wide recreceiver. Okay, so he's got better draft capital than Ross St. Brown and Seth Williams.
Draft capital.
No, we're not going to talk about Seth Williams. Anyway, I think it's awesome. I think that they did the right thing. They stayed put, and I agree with you with the Vikings too with Darius. I mean, I just think there's certain teams that take these foundational offensive linemen to help their young quarterbacks, and then there's the Bengals. So going into our next question, let's go to the other end. Who was the worst pick of the NFL draft? And no one picked Jamar Chase to the Cincinnati Bengals. You don't have to worry, Taylor. In fact, I don't think anyone picked a Bengals pick at all. So that's pretty cool. Let's start with Chase here. Who was the worst pick of the NFL draft? And it's going to be a guy that we talk about in 3 separate categories tonight when I looked at the show sheet. So Chase, lead it off.
Man, so I wanted to go with Carmen, but I didn't have the heart to. I decided to go with Tutu Atwell because, could you imagine a team taking Van Jefferson in the second round, and then 1 year later taking Tutu Atwell in the second round? I had both these players ranked outside the 5th round, and yet they both still went in the second round to the same exact team. It was the 2 biggest reaches for wide receiver position in both the 2020 and the 2021 draft, and I have no idea what's happening right now. Why the hell did Tutu Atwell go in the second round to the Rams? My mind is blown. I don't get
Matthew Stafford some help, okay?
Yeah. Here's what it is. Okay.
My God, they got
Tutu Atwell, we all know, is very short, right? That's a thing. And Van Jefferson, we know, is very old. So they knew all along that they were going to draft Tutu Atwell. And he's not allowed on any sort of roller coasters by himself without adult supervision. So that's why they had to get Van Jefferson. So they had to pair the short guy with the old guy. And now everyone's allowed on Space Mountain.
That's what you came up with.
That could be it.
That is how your analysis is rolling tonight. All right, let's do tonight. Let's do the show.
Taylor, who you got? Who's the worst pick of the NFL draft?
Does anybody else want to talk about Tutu Atwell? Because I definitely
we definitely will.
Him in a category. Taylor has him in a category. It's going to be a 2-2 show.
Whose show was I doing? I forget who's out. It was either DLF or I was on the hot sauce when the Tutu Atwell pick came through, and I couldn't stop laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing. I was like, it was just so funny to me. I just muted myself and laughed for an hour and a half.
Okay, so Taylor, you got because this Tutu Atwell thing is blowing my mind.
I put every team that passed on Justin Fields. And not every team, of course, because, Trey Lance is a fine pick. I still would have had Fields over Lance, but it's defensible. But mainly Denver and Carolina, that you have him, again, fall into your laps, and you wouldn't have had to give up any draft capital, no future first-round picks, and you do not have the long-term quarterback answer on your team. And you
Sam Darnold?
There's a tons on the show, okay?
Sam Darnold's only 23.
Anymore. We don't have to pretend that
Sam Darnold's only 23. Good. I've heard he's young, so he has many more years to suck, but he's not the answer. And you passed on Justin Fields, which I just don't understand not taking the chance on a quarterback that's definitely going to be better than the guys you have.
Interesting. Yeah. Real quick, Jacob, go fuck yourself.
Austin Coombs in the chat says, when did you weigh more than Tutu Atwell? For me, it was the 8th grade. Shane, why don't you answer Austin's pressing question first?
Tutu Atwell's 149?
Yeah, he's a little guy.
I was skinny in high school because I would say 13. 13, I was probably Tutu Atwell's, so 9th grade. And then after that, now I'd fucking just pick him up and snack on him. He's just a little, you know what I mean? Whatever, the Rams wanted. Yeah, I comped them too, and I know you guys aren't old, so you won't understand this reference. But Lucas, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Lucas.
Is that like an old Western or
no old
okay.
like
Lucas,
80s
like the character
rom-com.
from Ness?
Look it up. Watch it sometime. It's about a kid that plays on the football team in high school in the 80s, and he shouldn't, and he gets put in the hospital. That's what's going to happen to Tutu Atwell in the NFL.
I've seen that movie, and
Bobby
I don't
Wagner
remember
is literally going to murder Tutu Atwell.
Yeah.
Wait, what's? I tried to look it up real quick, but I didn't find it in time. What's the offensive lineman, the rookie offensive lineman that could probably eat him in one bite?
Any of them?
No, like the biggest. He's like the heaviest official, like human.
I don't scout offensive.
I will say I can bring this back to the Bengals. Tyler Shelvin, who we drafted in the 4th round, apparently weighed 400 pounds last year, and he's down to 350. So I would think he probably could eat Tutu Atwell if he was, wanting to bulk back up.
We'll go with that one. If I find it,
there you
we'll
go.
Back to it. How long would it take Devontae Smith to eat him? Because I'm thinking a year.
A while.
What?
Devontae's a snacker. He's a grazer.
That's me, and that's why I still weigh about the same as Tutu Atwell.
So I picked Kadarius Toney.
Are there any Giants fans in the chat? Because here, I'll quote the Giants fans that don't like my take on Kadarius Toney. Cry, bitch.
Kadarius Toney. Gettleman was so smug with himself because he's like, I did a trade back. I'm so good at this. And then he was like, I need any receiver. Kadarius Toney will do.
Shane, that laugh. So I like Kadarius Toney for the Giants. I hate it for fantasy. I hate it for fantasy. But I do like it for the Giants. I think it's a good pick.
I think it's always good to get a punt returner in round 1.
I just said that, and all right, so you're referencing draft capital right now, and later in the show, you're going to reference draft capital in the opposite way. Okay, I see how it's going.
No, he's got draft capital, but his draft capital is like Henry Ruggs' draft capital, where it's like, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. No. Just because one team is stupid enough to draft you that high doesn't mean that every team would have.
Oh, man.
Look, here's my thought on Toney. Like, I hate Toney more than your average bear. Like, I am out here warring with the Giants fans every day about Toney. I'm warring with Chase. I think he's pretty brutal. However, he's actually a value in Superflex rookie drafts. Like, he's falling to the 210 to 212 range. And I am not known for my humility at all.
Oh.
But here's the thing. Like, I'm not that confident in my abilities to let a round 1 pick fall to round 3. So I'm actually overweight on Kadarius Toney. At like 211, I got Kadarius Toney in my first rookie draft of the year. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, this is not going to be good. Like, I'm going to be drafting Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, no, at 213, there's literally no risk involved. And if anyone's done any rookie drafts, well, you have, you know how bleak and sad it gets. Like,
draft?
The entire second half of the second round of rookie drafts, you're just like, can we just call this the 3rd round? So I don't feel bad for drafting this guy in the 2nd. Like, these are like 4th round guys I'm drafting. Anyway, let's keep it moving.
My worst, and look, it's not actually about Devontae Smith. I want to make it clear. Devontae Smith can ball. Like, when I watch tape on these guys, specifically when I'm watching tape on the guys with incomplete analytical profiles, I'm looking for reasons why I should like you more than the numbers say that I should. And with Smith, it's easy. Like, I watch the dude, I'm like, you can absolutely ball out. But here's the issue. It's what the Eagles did. It's the process. They were there at 6. They traded back to 12. Then they panicked because the guy they thought they were going to get at 12 wasn't going to go at 12. Here were their options if they stay back at 12. There's only a few ways that this goes. Either the Bears make the same trade up with the Cowboys. They probably don't, right? The Cowboys, if no one trades up, the Cowboys probably just stay there. They take Micah Parsons. Then all of a sudden the Giants are on the clock. Either the Giants take Smith, in which case the Eagles could have the opportunity to get the massive haul that the Giants got from the Bears to come up and get Justin Fields, or the Giants still make the same trade. The Eagles get Devontae Smith at 12. They played this so terribly. And so for a team with an awful roster to just throw a 3rd round pick and just burn it on fire to move up 2 spots for a wide receiver, it just drove me crazy because no matter how else it goes, they either get Smith at 12 anyways, or they get 2 firsts and a 4th and a 5th from Ryan Pace.
No, I don't.
Or they just take Justin Fields.
I feel like you didn't watch Avengers Endgame.
I did.
You didn't follow the alternate realities.
God,
you can't just move the dominoes where you want and be like, well, if this would have happened, this couldn't have happened, but this would have happened. Dude, it's a third rounder. They had an extra third. They're fine. They're gonna have 3 firsts next year. They're fine. They had to get Smith though. Like honestly, when the two quarterbacks,
I'd rather have Slater.
When the 2 cornerbacks went off the board, and there was no other receivers after Smith worth drafting. Kadarius Toney, well, not that high at least. Bateman, I would want to mind later in the round, but anyway, they needed to do it. In the end, though, they still ended up picking up an additional first rounder and ended up with Devontae Smith. So it's fine.
It's not the end of the world. I just Shane was going to trigger Giants Twitter. And so I need to trigger Eagles Twitter because those are the 2 most fragile fan bases I've ever seen on this godforsaken app that we call Twitter.com. And I just can't allow one to get triggered without.
Who calls it Twitter.com? Who calls it Twitter.com?
I do. It's Twitter.com.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's official that, but who calls it that?
I call it that. Anyway, which rookie had their stock rise the most after the draft? And I will let Shane, you haven't gone first yet. Let's hear your lovely voice.
Oh, and this isn't a guy I even like, but I'm never going to draft him too because he's being overdrafted now. But Trey Sermon. Sermon. He moved up from the RB4 all the way to the RB4. But because all the wide receivers fell in shitty spots like guys that we liked. Amon-Ra St. Brown drafted in the 4th round. Seth Williams drafted in the 15th round. We're not talking about
Seth Williams.
I'm just saying guys that we like.
That name is Ben. I'll kick you off the show.
Tylen Wallace getting drafted in the 4th round. So we know they're dead. Like you just put a fucking bullet in the back of their spot. Whoosh, dead. So that moves Trey Sermon up a little bit. So I'm gonna go with Trey Sermon. Look, I like the fit for him there. He's got a 3-down skill set. Kyle Shanahan will use a running back in a 3-down role if the running back is actually worthy of it and doesn't get injured every other week like the current cast of characters that he has. So Trey Sermon for me.
All right.
Taylor, who's your biggest riser? And yeah, Taylor, I'm scared of Shane too, but just remember, he's up there in the Northeast United States. The only one within driving distance, realistically, is Chase. So
I tried to recruit Shane to
we're next, but Chase will go first.
I tried
to
recruit him. I'm in Kentucky. Yeehaw.
To Kentucky? You tried to recruit me to Kentucky?
No, I tried to recruit you to the Bengals fandom.
Yeah. I put the Eagles. Look, I can't help it. I'm a terrible person, okay. So I go back to what I know.
That's all right.
Taylor, who is the biggest riser for you?
I mean, the name change.
Yeah, well, I mean, the answer would really be Kadarius Toney because if he didn't go in the first round, who's taking him before round 3? Probably not that many people.
The Giants. They would have done it in round 2.
I put Amari Rodgers with a question mark, and only because I didn't do a ton of mocks beforehand, but I am thinking that he is going to, especially if the Aaron Rodgers stuff dies down a little bit, who knows if it will. I think some people are thinking he's slotting into like a Randall Cobb type of role immediately, going to be productive. There's no one else on that team that's going to catch besides Adams. I've only advanced thus far in one rookie draft to the end of the second. I think he went like 210, which is probably fine, but I don't know where he was going if he didn't go to Green Bay in round 2 or 3 or wherever he was. Probably was like, he was a guy I wasn't even really on my radar to begin with.
Absolutely. I think that's a great one.
Thank
Chase,
you, Jacob.
Who's your guy?
I mean, keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers hates rookies or hates anybody that he doesn't really have, Thanksgiving dinner with.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of concern. But I was mixed between this one because if we're talking about like super flex for Dynasty, I really like Kellen Mond. I think he got a great landing spot. I think, him stepping into a role with an offensive-minded head coach who, is going to take the ball out of his hands to an extent, but still going to command great efficiency is going to be phenomenal. And what is Kellen Mond going at in super flex leagues right now? Like late second?
I don't know. No, I'm seeing going to third, fourth, but he's not getting the fourth because I'm not letting him get there. I'm smashing him in the third every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a phenomenal pick, phenomenal value for a future starting quarterback. And he's only going to gain value as the contract, conversations continue to stall with Kirk Cousins, because I don't see Kirk Cousins ever going back there. In fact, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody recently about Kirk Cousins actually ended up with Washington again, which I think would be cool. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is the biggest winner. I know that he went a round later than what everybody thought he was going to go in the third round, but I never saw that happen. I had him as a 5th round draft grade. So he's actually moved up around, and he's going to a team that he's going to command targets from. I mean, Rashad Perryman, dude, come on. Like, really? Quintez Cephas?
Tom Kennedy.
Oh, come on. Like, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. And
what's that worth?
A wide receiver 1 in offense?
It's worth about the 2.8 in Superflex.
Yeah, look, I loved Amon-Ra St. Brown. But the fact that he fell to the 4th round, he's dead to me. Just because historically that they're dead. I don't care who it is.
Who else are you going to take? Are you going to take Dwayne Eskridge?
You have to draft. That's the problem with this draft is you have to draft these people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and every player you draft in the 2nd round feels like a reach, but you have no choice.
What would you rather do? Because this is honestly, I think this is an actual decision people are going to have to make in end of round 2, early round 3. Would you rather take the players that you didn't like coming in, the Palmers, the Eskridges, the Atwells, the Schwartzes, or would you rather ride with the guys that you did like coming in that got the bad draft capital, the Tylen Wallace, the Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, to me, like, I'm okay with Amon-Ra because even though he didn't get the draft capital, he got such a good landing spot. And I know Shane is the landing spot expert on this podcast.
Oh, he loves landing spots. That's why I don't understand this.
So I want to defer all landing spot analysis to Shane Manila. However, I'm going to try and do some landing spot analysis. And I think that Amon-Ra, right? Why do we hate late draft capital? It's because the NFL doesn't think they're as good as we did, and it's because they're probably not going to get forced opportunity. Like, it doesn't matter how good they think Amon-Ra is because he's at least better than Brashad Perriman, and he's going to get opportunity because Brashad Perriman. That's sort of where I'm at. So, like,
Brashad, do we bring up Brashad Perriman yet? Do we bring up Brashad Perriman? Because I feel like we need to bring up Brashad Perriman.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You're making really salient points, and
like if he went to, oh my God, did you change my name?
I sure did.
Get that off my screen. No, so sitting there and looking at it, like, yeah, if he ended up in Pittsburgh as a 4th round pick, that's a whole different monster. But ending up in an offense where he has no chance to compete for targets, or landing in a spot where he has all the chance to compete, for targets. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a trigger you must pull.
Wow, that was a really eloquent phrase.
You
have your moments,
I like it.
Look,
After I stumbled through the previous part as I'm laughing at you changing my name.
I want to name check Michael Carter because no one said him, and he went from small, slow, and irrelevant to small, slow, and people are pretending he's relevant. So I want to quickly check Michael Carter. Then I'm going to move on to my actual answer, which is Rondell Moore, I have like 5 or 6, brand ambassadors from this rookie class who I hype up incessantly on Twitter, and only one of them got a good landing spot and good draft capital, and that's Rondell Moore. He goes to Arizona, which, I think Cliff Kingsbury is a fake sharp, but that's fine. He does have at least some sort of offensive scheme that creates some level of space. We know that's Rondell Moore's game. Shout out to Dustin in the chat. This was the first thing I posted in my league chat when he got drafted. I said, Goss just got his new Cooper Kupp. I think you're totally right, Dustin. And, Cooper Kupp, he was a late 3rd round pick too. And he was, Van Jefferson's age coming into the league. So I think Amon-Ra has a shot at that. And yeah, I think back to Rondell quick, just right. You can't ask for a better situation. First of all, I didn't think he was going to go to round 2. I actually thought he was going to fall to round 3. I was preparing to have my heart broken. And not only does he go to round 2, but he went to the spot that I put on my pre-draft as Rondell Moore, dream landing spot, and then it says Arizona Cardinals, and it actually happened. So Hopkins is obviously going to be soaking up all the targets there. He's going to be soaking up all the double coverage, and that means Kyler's just got to check it down sometimes to Rondell. And we all know that once he gets the ball in his hands, there's nobody better, right? You don't need height.
You don't need height because he's checking it down.
Exactly. So I think it's a great spot. I'm all about Rondell. He's my wide receiver 4 in this class coming in, and he stays right there after this.
Honestly,
draft.
I'm just glad it closes the chapter of Christian Kirk because I'm tired of that.
Yeah,
shout out to Corey Spalla. Corey Spalla, the C dot. Shout out to Christian Kirk. Now let's go the other end, and I'll kick this off. which rookie had their stock fall the most. And I just we are gathered here today to mourn the loss of Seth Williams, of Tylen Wallace, and in general, I think of the contested catch clasher wide receiver. I think that this is something I'm going to dig into over the summer, but it's now 3 draft classes where we've either seen this archetype of wide receiver that checks all the boxes analytically, they check the boxes size-wise, they produce, and yet the ones we've seen drafted highly, pretty much with the exception of T. Higgins, that fit this archetype, have either fallen in the draft or failed when drafted, right? We saw N'Keal Harry, saw Tylen Wallace, Seth Williams plummet down the draft boards this year. We saw this happen with Tyler Johnson last year, where these guys who the analytics community really does fall in love with are just plummeting down draft boards. And right, N'Keal Harry is the best example where he actually did get drafted highly, and it turns out he fucking sucks. Yeah. So like with Seth Williams, it's tough, right? Like I didn't love him on tape when I watched tape, but he was still in my tier 3 wide receivers because I was trusting the early breakout, the size, the production, and the NFL, told him exactly what they thought, which is we can't wait to watch him contribute on special teams. And, Tylen Wallace, similar thing. I think he's a better player than Seth Williams. He did get drafted 4th round, but 4th round, right? Like he's still probably dead. And I think going forward, when we see these guys that we like, right, it's one of the two. Either they actually just suck and the NFL's right, or the NFL just isn't prioritizing these players. And either way, it shows that we probably need to rethink things a little bit. So let's swing it over to Shane. Who's your guy here?
I'm sorry, I forgot what we were talking about. That was such a long fucking ramble. It was good.
It was good though. Hey, real quick, Shane might actually recognize this real quick, but the same thing happened in early 2000s where teams went to quicker, more responsive people or more responsive wide receivers. We saw the Lavernius Coles, Torrey Holtz, the Reg Waynes, these faster wide receivers come out, and the bigger wide receivers failed. Yeah, the bigger wide receivers failed. And then all of a sudden they redesigned these offenses to get the big wide receivers, more possession type catches, and they take off again. It happens about every 15 years or so. So this is that time where they're coming out with all the speedsters.
No, but I think that the one important thing that Jacob really hit on among many salient points there was separation. The NFL used to be okay with, it's just a jump ball. Des Bryant, that's fine. He'll just jump. He'll just outbody the cornerback to get it. The quarterbacks aren't really. I don't know if the quarterbacks aren't as precise as they used to be, or maybe they just go, you know what? It's probably a lot easier if you can get a guy that has 2 yards of separation as opposed to a guy that has 2 inches. So let's get the guy that can get separation. That's why DK Metcalf is huge, but he can separate. Yeah. It just so happens that it's usually easier for smaller receivers to separate. Now, if big, monstrous people like DK Metcalf can separate, then you'll see a bunch of 6'4" guys out there blazing.
It's also critical to note too that you were able to level these guys that were 5'10" beforehand. You didn't have to get there at the same exact time the ball did. You could have a safety coming in late to level these guys and knock them out of the game because they weren't going to come down with 3 receptions.
Well, I think that's a really salient point. And, even beyond that, it's at the top, it's right at the line of scrimmage too, right? Like the way that you can press wide receivers now is different than the way you used to be able to press wide receivers. You can't just take these smaller guys and just body them and just run them out of bounds. So it definitely makes it tougher. And like you said, Shane, quarterbacks want to see it before they throw it. And, they're not seeing it with that. I just want to quickly pause this. Yeah, I want to pause this for a sec. Dustin Ross, the chat says, Travis Etienne is the biggest loser. And I want to pause this, first of all, because I think you're just wrong, baseless, and arbitrary. But more than that, this is I know, Dustin, it's fine.
It's not okay to attack our listeners and viewers. Jesus, Jacob, we have to have this talk again?
It's like the 3rd time in 4 weeks.
Look, I just want to I want to give the floor to this quick because I think this is definitely a major point that people are going to have to decide is should we be moving Travis Etienne down our draft boards because of the UDFA that he's been drafted beside? Do we care about James Robinson in terms of Travis Etienne and actually encumbering him? Because Travis Etienne was my RB1 before the draft. He's still my RB1. And my advice to folks is wherever you had Etienne pre-draft is where you should have Etienne now because he was drafted round 1. So I want to go live to our landing spot correspondent, Shane Manila. What do you think of Travis Etienne's landing spot? And then I know you have to go do Dynasty HQ after that.
Then I do have to go run after this. So I'm more concerned about the thought process behind it. Running back really wasn't a need for that team. And Urban Meyer went out and got him in the first round and then talked about how he's going to be a third down back behind James Robinson and Carlos Hyde. Like, that scares me more than, James Robinson, actually. Just the thought process behind it. Because you can outplay players. You can't outplay stupid. If your head coach is stupid and he makes stupid decisions, you're shit out of luck. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to do things like, well, they expect us to split Travis Etienne out wide, but what if we do it with Carlos Hyde instead? Like, I can see that line of thinking, and that scares me. Now, Travis Etienne is so good that I think he will outplay the stupid. He's going to be lined up a lot as a wide receiver. They've already talked about that. So I'm fine with Travis Etienne. If he falls a little bit, I'll pounce on him. And now I want to wish all of Canada a beautiful evening. And I love you guys, and I'm sorry I have to leave early tonight.
Good night, Shane. We'll see you next week.
Taylor, thank you for podcasting with me.
Yes, this has been a real honor. Guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Shaner. Taylor, let's go to you here. What's salient? That's Taylor. I expect nothing but salient points from you. What do you think on Travis Etienne? I know that we're without the guidance of our landing spot correspondent, so let's try and forge on.
I feel really lost. Really lost.
Is Travis Etienne dead because of Robinson or stupid or Carlos Hyde?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: if you wanted to adjust redraft for accounting for James Robinson in 21, I think that's fine, because I don't think Travis Etienne comes in and handles 20 touches a game from week 1. But I do think it's going to be one of those annoying, let's work in, James Robinson gets the first touches and Hyde spells them every once in a while, and then Etienne gets a random drive. I think it'll be annoying for a while, but as the redraft correspondent, I do believe that that jeez. For Dynasty, I'm not concerned about Travis Etienne. Like you said, wherever you had him, just keep him.
Chase, what do you think?
I think that it was a smart move. We've looked over the history of Urban Meyer's offenses. Well, I have at least. I don't know about you guys. He runs a lot. He runs a whole lot. He's not a huge passing offense guy. He spreads it out, and he wants to run it up the gut constantly. We've seen, obviously, big-time running backs come from there from time to time. And I know we've seen speed wide receivers come from there from time to time. Sitting there and looking at it, I kind of like the move. I think that both can have fantasy value. I'm a little bit nervous about this entire offense just constantly interchanging people out. Like, it reminds me of like hockey, and I don't watch hockey, so maybe I'm wrong. But maybe you can, help me out with this a little bit, Jacob.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't they like change out like lines like constantly throughout the what is it? Is it a match? Is it a game? Is it
it's a game? Yeah,
it's a game. Okay, constantly. Is it like a constant change up throughout like the game that you guys play up there on the ice?
Yeah, you have shifts actually. So yeah, you have lines, and not the fun kind of lines that you see in Miami. Like you have you have players on the bench, and then the players go out, they skate around, they try to shoot the puck in the net, and then they get tired, so they switch off, and then they have a blow on the bench. Again, not that fun kind of blow. But
so then looking at it, is like, I feel like there could be line changes just like we see in hockey where it's just constantly interchanging people out. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them walk in there with like 4 running backs and 6 wide receivers active on game day.
Could be. I mean, what's the defense, right? You don't need one of those.
They've had really good defenses in their history too, so maybe they feel like they can control that.
So the guy I said their stock fell the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's get back on track. So thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, no problem.
Go for it.
I put in my heart, it was Tamorian Terry, because I wanted him to work, and I knew he wasn't going to get good draft capital. But I'm like, if he can get 4th round, I would be ecstatic. If he gets 5th, I will still reach for him probably. Yeah. The UDFA status hurts. That hurts.
What?
Say what?
Like, he hasn't been signed, right?
Yeah, no, Seattle.
He's signed to Seattle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you got to. Okay, you're right.
They took both my favorite UDFAs, him and Kay Johnson.
Yeah.
What's really funny is Taylor cried about Dwayne Eskridge.
And they drafted Eskridge, who I like. So
you do like Eskridge.
I like Eskridge, yeah.
Weird.
I do like Eskridge. But anyways, so honorable mention in my heart was Tamorrion Terry, but I knew deep down that he wasn't, going to pan out. I put Dyami Brown here because I really was expecting him to be a early-ish second round pick, like probably behind Smith, Waddle. I mean, I don't like Waddle, but I'm talking rookie draft. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So behind Smith, Waddle, Chase, Bateman, even maybe I could have seen him being the 5th wide receiver. And when you're going through rookie drafts right now, after those 4 wide receivers, I definitely don't want to take Terrace Marshall. So I'm looking at what's there, and I'm feeling like I wish Dyami Brown had gotten a little bit better landing spot, draft capital combo, even maybe would be nice. But like I've gotten him twice today at 3rd round, 3-2 and 3-3, I think. So I'm pleased with him at that value, but I really was like expecting I was going to have to take him in the early-ish second. So I'd say he's falling around.
I'm going to have like 100% exposure to Dyami Brown because I did my first rookie draft and I was just taking him, where I had him, which was 2-7. And in that league, like I had 5 second-round picks. So I didn't really get to see the draft pan out. I was the draft. And then I was in your league, Taylor, and
right.
I had a decision as should I take Dyami Brown again or should I go Pat Freiermuth? And I only had Robert Tonyan really as a viable tight end. So I went with Freiermuth. And then I was trying to trade up and get Dyami Brown, and he fell to the 3. And eventually I'm going to trade for him, but like it's the last thing I do.
The dude that doesn't have hands, right? He doesn't run routes. He just hit
lie.
What?
Lie.
No, it's not. Like he has 3 routes or 4 routes he ran in all of college. He has a 5.2% drop rate. He has a 36.4% contested catch rate, which is terrible for college.
Yeah,
like he cannot, and he does not catch the ball with his hands. Every catch that he made was with his body. He's like cradling it. It's like, oh, how can I catch it with my body? I'm going to go on this deep pass. Oh, let me bring it to my body. Like he does not catch it with his hands. And every time that he attempts to catch it with his hands, he drops it. If it's contested, he has 0 chance, even if it's like a little 5-yard out. Just go back and watch the film. It is insane. Now, I
watched a lot of Brown film, and I agree with you on that. Like, he sucks at contested catches. He's the worst.
He sucks at catching.
In the draft. Yeah, well, that's because it doesn't have good hands. And to be fair, if I was him, I'd also catch my body because his hands are deficient. But,
it is bad.
Look, it's fine.
They're made of
Drops
rocks.
don't matter. Like he's a good route runner. He has a ton of experience.
No, he's not a good route runner.
Yes, he is.
He ran 4 routes.
Absolutely.
He ran a slant. He run way.
Have you ever watched college football? That's what they run. Like here's all the routes that Rondell Moore and Kadarius Toney ran. Screen to the right. Oh wait, then the other route, screen to the left. Like that's like college football. You don't see that.
That's a whole different animal.
Like there's the Devontae Smiths and Rashad Batemans and dudes that run a full tree. After that, you're looking at traits. And you're looking at who has the ability to be a route runner, and you're projecting. And Dyami Brown faced press coverage on the outside again and again and again. He ran 100% of his routes from the left wide receiver slot, and he was able to beat press coverage, and he was able to be a really efficient receiver despite having horrendous hands. Like I don't think his hands are good, but is Deontay Johnson able to produce? He's able to produce. That guy can't catch for shit. So to me, like if you look at a guy like Dyami Brown, he's like a more athletic Deontay Johnson, where he has that route running ability. He's able to get separation, and he's actually has a vertical element to his game. Whereas Deontay Johnson is just like running drags and digs and stuff, and being on Taylor's fantasy teams.
That's right.
I have 0 shares of Deontay Johnson.
And you'll have 0 shares of Dyami Brown.
I will.
He is falling, though. I'll give you that. I saw a poll today that said, would you rather have Amari Rodgers or Dyami Brown? And Amari Rodgers won that poll, and I shit myself.
I would consider it. All right, I'm going to mention Shane's real quick.
Okay.
Terrace Marshall Jr. being the 4th option on a passing offense that, according to Taylor, has a subpar quarterback. So,
yeah.
I think that Terrace Marshall is actually one of my biggest followers as well.
It's Terrace.
Did I say Terrace?
Terrace. It's Terrace.
Terrace. I thought I said Terrace.
Terrace Marshall is actually the RB1 for the Dolphins, and then Myles Gaskins is the wide receiver 3 for the Panthers.
Terrace Marshall, excuse me. I'm looking right at the name as I say it. No, but sitting there looking at it, I was wishing that he was going to end up with Washington, which is where De'Ami Brown ended up, or I was hoping that he was going to end up with Green Bay, which I thought he was a better version of Alan Lazard. And I would have been rock hard for these situations, but with him ending up as a fourth, option in this offense, it's going to take him 2 years to become relevant minimum. I thought he was ready to produce now. So he goes from probably my fourth wide receiver off the board all the way down to my 6th or 7th, especially with Rondell Moore's landing spot. Now moving above him.
As the Terrace Marshall fanboy, who's produced Terrace Marshall content for our circle, who has him proudly in his Twitter banner. You hate to see it. I thought he had an outside chance being a first-round pick, and he's after Tutu Atwell, which is, I'm not going to say it's good. It's not good. It's bad. However, at least he got round 2 draft capital. It could be worse, right? He could be Tylen Wallace, he could be Seth Williams, he could be De'Ami Brown, and he went to Curtis Samuel was expelled, right? So Curtis Samuel's gone. He was a wide receiver 3 last year. That's a lot of vacated targets. And Terrace Marshall can walk into that role. It's not an offense used as a tight end at all. Ian Thomas gets nothing. Who'd they get? Dan Arnold and Tommy Tremble. That's not going to be a thing in 2021. So he has a lot of opportunity there. And Robbie Anderson is gone after this year, most likely. So Terrace Marshall, I'm a realist. I'm not that crazy. I think Terrace Marshall's not a number 1 wide receiver. I think he's an excellent number 2 wide receiver because he's not the guy. His worst attribute is if someone comes and jams him up on the line and they're focusing all their attention on him, I don't think that's where he wins. I think he's the guy that needs to be moved in space. And then once he's in space, the poorest possible version of A.J. Brown, where sort of once they're able to maneuver him in motion, and then Terrace Marshall can go to work. I think it's a great fit next to DJ Moore long term. So I'm on board. He's my wide receiver 5 now. He was my wide receiver 3, but he's still my wide receiver 5 in the class, and I'm drafting him in every single league, it seems.
So real quick, and we'll move on to the next topic. I just want to ask you guys one word question, I guess. Does DJ Moore or Terrace Marshall play more snaps in the slot this upcoming season?
I think Terrace Marshall plays more snaps in the slot this season. What do you think, Taylor?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Wait, which one?
Maybe, might, yeah.
More or
what is this answer?
I don't have an answer. I don't know who's going to play more in the slot.
I think DJ Moore has more snaps.
I would hope DJ Moore would play more in the slot. I like him working.
He was really bad on the outside. He was really bad on the outside.
But I also feel like there's a chance. Wasn't Terrace Marshall mostly outside though for LSU?
No,
it was a mix.
Well, so in his first year, LSU's offense is weird, where it's almost like they want their best wide receiver to be the slot wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, that was the Joe Brady offense, right? So similar. But they ran Jefferson in the slot mostly in Marshall's first year, and he was playing flanker with Chase at X. And then in his second year, they played Boutte at X, and Marshall played 76% in the slot. So, but he's really good outside. He actually, his quarterbacks over the last 2 years had a perfect passer rating when targeting him as an outside receiver. However, I think that in the NFL, I don't think he can play X in the NFL. I think he can play flanker or slot effectively in the NFL. And I still think DJ Moore can play X in the NFL. So I think that's what they're going to do, but we'll see.
Yep. I have DJ Morris either X or slot. But obviously Robbie Anderson took that role over. So I feel like you're going to end up having to see Terrace Marshall on the outside a lot more often, drawing that double safety coverage deep, and DJ Moore seeing those underneath targets. But that's just me.
Let's roll to one here. This one I think will be entertaining. So I'm going to skip one. What was the biggest blown opportunity pick? And you can take this, whatever way you want. Either a pick where the player they took, it ruined their fantasy dreams, or it just ruined a good landing spot, or it ruined a veteran that you have some emotional attached to. Which pick just came through and you were just really, really mad and you threw your remote at the television?
Oh, dude, I cannot stand the fact that Christian McCaffrey is not going to be an RB1 this season because of Chuba Hubbard. That's so fucked, man. Chuba Hubbard just took all of CMC snaps, and I hate that. Good luck drafting CMC 101. Man, I just traded 4 first-round picks for CMC, and now Chuba Hubbard's going to take all of them. This is fun.
Yeah, he's an Olympian.
He's an Olympian. He should have been an Olympian.
Taylor, which one ticked you off the most?
Well, as I stated earlier in our group conversation, I'm a very even-keeled man, so I really didn't get ticked off about anything.
I'll rephrase. Which one came through, and then you're like, golly.
Yeah, I would say Tylen Wallace. When Tylen Wallace was falling, I think he was my wide receiver 6 pre-draft. Yeah, which I didn't dock him a ton because I tried not to overreact to landing spot. But some of those guys that were behind him that were, I would say, were same tier, jumped him. But to go in the 4th round is not ideal. But then also to go to Baltimore, who, I'm not going to get into the argument about their quarterback and their passing opportunities. I think there will be more volume there, but there's not going to be enough volume to support Bateman and Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown and Tylen Wallace. So I think Wallace is donezo, but I also am going to be able to drop Miles Boykin now too, because I've held him for too long. I'm going to probably drop Devin Duvernay. I'll just drop them all. I'm just done with all of them.
Like it's hot.
Drop all of them.
My real one was Royce Freeman. I still dropped Duvernay.
Okay, but why do you care about Royce Freeman?
Because I love him, and I drafted him.
I can't drop him.
Okay, well,
I know, right? You can't drop him.
How many? What's the bench size in these leagues you play in? Because every couple of weeks, Taylor comes to me, or sorry, not Taylor. You're a reasonable guy. Chase comes to me. And he's like, "Do you think I should drop Isaiah Coulter?" And I'm like, "Obviously, you should drop Isaiah freaking Coulter."
We have 35 total roster spots in most of my leagues.
That's so okay. Fine, you can roster Royce Freeman with 20 bench spots. Then that's acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, but Royce Freeman, I drafted with like the 103 or the 104 in most of my leagues. I traded up for him, man. Like he was supposed to be the stud, and he wasn't. And
look at this. Really that's how I feel when you say that you traded up to take a 3rd round running back at the 103. But you'll get a second chance. You can just take Trey Sermon at the 103 this year.
No, it'll be Javonte Williams.
Yeah, that could be. Look, I think. I agree with you, Taylor. I mean, the Tylen Wallace stuff sucks. Like, I have an article coming out soon on why I think that Baltimore will pass more and how it's still viable for Rashad Bateman to become a wide receiver 1 in that offense eventually. But like, there can only be one, right? That's sort of the thing is with these low volume offenses, we've seen one wide receiver emerge to be a stud in a low volume passing offense and to push it to be less low volume, but. I mean, let's be real here. Like, I'm not expecting them to go from the lowest volume team in the league to the Chiefs, right? So, I think Bateman will be fine. Marquise Brown, like whatever you can get for him, bag of chips. Kellen Mond, a meatball sub. I would take any of those 3 things for Marquise Brown. He's absolutely dust. Tylen Wallace, that's a tough scene.
I love how you're talking about Marquise Brown as if he wasn't a wide receiver 1 at the tail end of last year of the last 7 games of the season.
Why are we bringing up 6 game sample sizes? Like
because that's when they started designing runs again.
The only time we're allowed to talk about sample sizes is if Taylor brings up Drew Sample.
That's right.
Sample sizes exist. So you can actually find chinks in the armor. So when you're sitting there and you're looking
at it. So in a 1 week sample size, Antonio Williams was the RB1 last year.
6 weeks or 7 weeks maybe. No, they started getting back to a different play calling style. So essentially they wanted Lamar Jackson to stay inside the pocket in like weeks 1 through 4. And he started taking hits. And they were like, okay, fine, you can start scrambling again. And you started seeing his run percentage go up per snap. And that happened for the next few weeks. And they're like, okay, now he's scrambling and now he's still getting hit. So they were like, all right, we need to go back to 2019 when we started doing like these side play runs. Once they started doing that and teams picked up that they were doing that, they started bringing their safeties into the box, which allowed Marquise Brown to actually get open on the second level. Now, people that are Rashad Bateman fans, people that like Rashad Bateman have to actually respect the fact that he could actually draw coverage from a safety if he ends up running an intermediate route, maybe a deep route. This can end up opening one-on-one coverage for Marquise Brown, who we all know has a speed demon, right? And can catch. So why would Marquise Brown not be an option in this offense if he has seen one-on-one coverage without safety coverage over the top if they're going to pass more often?
He's an option, and he's going to be a better NFL player But like the fantasy days are over. Like
what are you talking about? He's a wide receiver 12 or 13 over 6 weeks.
Because they didn't have any players. He was competing with the corpse of Des Bryant,
Willie Snead,
Miles Boykin, Devin Duvernay, like horrible people. Right?
And he scored a double coverage.
And he scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown every week during that stretch. What did they do in draft? They drafted Rashad Bateman, who's a prototypical outside alpha wide receiver, and Tylen Wallace, who's number one strength. What? I don't hate Rashad Bateman. I love Rashad Bateman.
No, you hate prototypical ex-wide receivers.
No, I don't. The NFL does.
Get it.
I love Seth Williams. Anyway, no, like I love Bateman, and then they drafted Tylen Wallace, who is a limited player, but his number one attribute is contested catches. Like if there's one thing that Tylen Wallace does super, super well, it's he runs a stunt and go, and then they throw it 30 yards, and then he leaps over people and he catches balls in the end zone. Like there's no one in this class that does it better than him. So the fact that like Marquise Brown, he's at best fourth option in the red zone. Like touchdowns are no longer a part of the Marquise Brown experience. I think he's going to be a more efficient NFL player.
That was never a red zone thing.
Yes, but he was. He was a wide receiver one in that period because he scored a touchdown every single week.
It wasn't part of the red zones.
Oh gosh. Look, okay, we're moving on real quick. I haven't even given mine for this question. Oh yeah, there's two. Right, we got to these late round picks, and I was in a sour mood because all of day two, the NFL was drafting jabronis like Josh frickin' Palmer and senior citizens like Dwayne Eskridge and Tutu Atwell, who is a dude who plays wide receiver maybe. And then I get into day three, and I'm like, all right, the Titans still haven't drafted a wide receiver. So Tylen Wallace or Seth Williams, let's get on the Titans. And instead, they took Des fucking Fitzpatrick, who is a 4-year player who got woefully outproduced by Tutu Atwell, who we were all laughing at like 30 minutes ago. He's never hit a 30% market share in his life playing at Louisville. And Tutu Atwell opted out. Tutu Atwell as a sophomore, who's 5'6", 149 pounds. We talked about people could eat Tutu Atwell. You know what Tutu Atwell ate? He ate Des Fitzpatrick's lunch. He absolutely destroyed him. They played on the same offense, and Des Fitzpatrick is a year older, and Tutu is like, yeah, get the heck out of here. I'm way better than you. And then Tutu opted out because he's like, Des, it's your senior year. I want you to get the ball. And then he did nothing. And then the Titans were like, Tylen Wallace, forget about you. Seth Williams, no thanks. We're taking Des Fitzpatrick. That's the answer. And it aggravated the crap out of me. And I'll double it up with the Chiefs in the 6th round. The last chance. I was like, finally, here we go. Tamarian Terry or Seth Williams, one of the two. And they're like, Cornell Powell, who I swear to God, if Justin Ross did not tear his ACL, we literally would not know that he exists. Like, I'm not saying like he wouldn't have been drafted. I'm saying that if he was Canadian, he wouldn't have had his name called tonight in the Canadian Football League draft. Let me just run through. Cornell Powell is 23 and a half years old. He played at Clemson from age 20 to 23. His freshman year, he had 8 catches. His sophomore year at 21, that's older than Kyle Pitts is today, he had 5 catches. Year 22, 15 catches for 122 yards on less than 5 yards per target from Trevor Lawrence at 22 years old.
Honestly, that says more about Trevor Lawrence.
That is so embarrassing. And then Justin Ross tears his ACL. So playing next to Amari Rodgers, he ends up with 882 yards on 79 targets at age of 23.
Sounds like he improved.
He is not even close to being close to an NFL player. It is so unbelievably aggravating that the Chiefs added him to their roster. Demarcus Robinson would make this guy look like crap. Get out Taylor Cornell Powell.
I have to have some shares of Cornell Powell. I just hope they don't come until the 5th round.
All right, real quick here. Who is a guy that, and we touched on with Tony, that you didn't think you would want any part of coming into rookie draft season, wasn't really on your board, and now all of a sudden you're in rookie drafts and you're like, well, shit, I keep ending up with this guy. And Taylor, I'll start with you. Taylor Cornell Powell.
What question is this on the show sheet?
I don't know. It's the question that's the one that I said. Oh, here we go. It says, which rookie are you shocked you'll be overweight on this year? And Taylor says, Davis Mills, maybe.
Wait, did I say that?
You sure did.
Yeah, you did.
How about this? I'll go first and you can rethink your life.
Okay. I don't remember that.
Mine is Tutu Atwell. And here we go. I'm going to give 45 seconds on Tutu Atwell. Freshman breakout.
So anyways, what's going on, Taylor? How you doing?
I think I said Davis Mills. I think I was saying Davis Mills because I was saying I would be surprised that I never would have ever thought I would ever take a Davis Mills. But the fact that he went third round to Houston, I would take a shot on him. But I to really answer the question, I don't really know that there's anybody that I'm going to be shocked that I just keep getting that I didn't want, because if I don't want him, I'm still not drafting him.
That's fair. But
like I'm getting a lot of Rondell Moores, but like I like Rondell Moore, so I'm okay with it.
The thing is, I want Tutu. Like I want to like players that have early breakouts. He's
a toother.
Freshman breakout. He had over 1,200 yards as a sophomore playing next to the Titans wide receiver 2, Des Fitzpatrick. And then he opts out because the NFL was like, Tutu, we've seen enough. You're so good. You don't even need to play your junior year. And you don't need to come back for your senior year because we're going to draft you in round 2. And so it wasn't a reach. How could you reach for Tutu? He's not that high up. So the Rams made a very logical pick, and they drafted a production all-star who, if he was a normal-sized person, would be an elite wide receiver candidate. Like, if you just look at production, he scales right up there with the top 5 wide receivers in this class. And you know what? In Canada, we have different ways of measuring things. So I'm looking at it in the third round. I'm like, would I rather have, retirement home Eskridge or Josh Palmer or, Davis Mills or Kyle Trask, whatever? And I'm like, you know what? Tutu Atwell looking pretty good right about these days.
How long did you have this spiel worked out? And how bad did I ruin it by kicking you out?
My next show is gonna be just me and Peter Howard, and we're only gonna talk about Tutu Atwell for an hour.
Oh, that's embarrassing. You just say that on our stream.
To be fair, no one's listening at this point. We're in minute 76.
No, we actually got a good crowd still in here.
That's actually wild. You guys are the best. I just want to say, if you guys are still in the chat, you guys are the truthers for us, and we appreciate you. You're the type of people that you have Dynasty Intervention on your taxi squad, and they might have just drafted another running back, but you're not.
We just lost somebody.
Wow! Stop talking. Stop talking.
Chase, you go.
No, mine's Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore, I wasn't a huge fan of coming into it. I think that, obviously with his height and everything was concerned, but he needed the perfect landing spot, and he got the perfect landing spot. It was between this and Green Bay for the most part for me. I'm a little bit concerned that he's not going to get as many dump offs with Kyler Murray being able to scramble out the pocket. But guess what? They can use him as running back. They can use him as a slot wide receiver. They can use him in the jet sweep. They can pretty much whatever they want. And like you brought up earlier, the biggest thing for me is the fact that once he has the ball in his hands, he's a monster. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be drawing double coverage. AJ Green is going to be pulling the safeties out the box. I seriously think that you're going to see some tremendous games out of Rondell Moore. I love it. And I think it only gets better at a running, because now you're going to talk about one-on-one safety coverage or one-on-one nickelback coverage. I think he's still going to end up commanding some snaps, 2 wide receiver sets, but he doesn't really run those. So I think we're talking about something big.
I think he could be their RB1.
The hell?
I like it.
Music starting my ears out of nowhere. It's gone. But yeah, no.
Are you okay there?
Yeah, the other one was Nico Collins. Nico Collins, I like him a little bit. If Deshaun Watson comes back and plays this year, I think Nico Collins, he's going to end somewhat of reckon with in the NFL if he gets developed the right way, but he needs the right wide receiver coaches. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know what's going to happen with the Texans and their whole wide receiver room. We don't know how it's going to end up with their offense. But if he gets an opportunity, he has a chance to develop into the right, form. I think Nico Collins could be good. He's hyper athletic. The wingspan has a wide receiver, very similar to Bryan Edwards. Obviously, John Gruden, they are terrible at developing wide receivers, or at least giving them an opportunity in their first year. So we didn't see that from Bryan Edwards. I'm not saying that Nico Collins and Bryan Edwards are the same players, but they have the same type of potential that we saw coming out.
Can we just say quick, though, and I agree, I think Nico Collins is in a good spot. The fact that Houston traded a 4th and a 5th round pick to trade up to get Nico Collins is hilarious. Like, they're so bad. They have no picks forever, and they burned 3 picks on Nico Collins, who I think is good, but if you're the Houston Texans, you're permanently banned from trading up. Like, just are.
There's actually a reason for that. So with the layer that the salary cap landed, they actually saved money throughout this draft, and their whole entire salary cap for this draft, I think, was like $722,000 for their signings. $722,000 for their salary cap signings for this entire draft. So they traded back at a couple of spots where it's a lot more salary cap reliant, and then they ended up trading up where they thought they could save money, and they actually had a very good draft for the values that they had in comparison to the salary cap, because they have something like 35 free agents or 40 free agents, whatever it is, as of 2021 or 2022 offseason. So these players are able to come in while it still ends up allowing them to go out and sign some big name free agents if need be. So they were more concerned about the salary cap over the next 4 years with their picks and getting the right values at the positions than I think they were actually drafting skill position players, because they could have moved pieces around, traded pieces from next year, et cetera, et cetera. I think they were more concerned about like saving their salary cap space to build for the future, since they don't have a future right now. I think it'd be waste of picks at the time of trying to move up and select guys that, weren't values at their position at the time.
I would just rather have good players on my team. I don't know.
Well,
that's not an option for them, Taylor.
It's not an option. Like,
what do you think, right? There's a lot of things we would like, but that's not going to happen.
It's weird. So you sit there and you look at certain teams, right, and their ability to save money in salary cap. Like, for example, I think Carolina Panthers saved like $2 million or something along those lines. Like, there are certain teams that actually saved a lot of money in the salary cap, but it's by getting depth at certain positions that normally don't offer a lot of depth in terms of returning value. So if you want a big possession receiver, you're typically going to have to pay for him unless your name is Seth Williams. You have.
Can we like? No.
The quarterback position is probably the best example, where they drafted Davis Mills. So Davis Mills might not work out, but it was a value for them as a backup quarterback for the future, even if he's not a starter. So essentially, they get a backup quarterback for the next 4 years. That's a great value. They just did a great job allocating their salary cap in order to build from the ground up, which they're going to have to do because they have nothing. They have nothing. They have nothing. Let me repeat that. They have nothing. So,
are you auditioning for a job with the Texans? Like, why are you praising the Texans?
Because it's the best that they could do with what they had.
Evan Silva today said that they should be relegated from the NFL.
It's really bad. Like, their whole, like, what they did was right, but what the previous staff did, what Bill O'Brien did, the GM, was horrendous for the NFL and for the Texans in particular, especially being the newest franchise. But yeah, still there?
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell if I was breaking up or you were breaking up.
I thought it was me.
Let's wrap this pretty quick here, because we're closing an hour and a half. Taylor, what is one final takeaway from the NFL draft? And it could be something really salient, or not as salient. It's up to you.
Well, I'm just going to say, because I wanted to work it in somewhere, I am fascinated by the Kyle Pitts stuff. One, generally, an NFL team taking a top 4 pick and putting it into a tight end, especially considering that team construction. Easy Chase. An older quarterback that, I guess it's like, a win now type of organization that's going for something in the next couple of years. But it was an interesting pick to take a tight end there. And then from the fantasy perspective, how people are drafting Kyle Pitts. So I'm seeing him at like the I'm seeing him at like the 1.3 to 1.5 ish range, maybe 1.6. And I just can't bring myself to pull the trigger on him at that spot.
You hate fun.
Yeah, I just can't do it. So I'm fascinated. I hope it works out. But everybody thinks he's, Travis Kelce from the start, and we'll see. We'll give it a year or two and see what happens. Better.
Yeah, he's Calvin Johnson playing tight end.
That's right.
Clearly, Chase, you're a profound kind of guy. What's your big takeaway from the NFL draft?
I'm really, really disappointed that the Chargers did not select Brian Daboll to be their head coach. Everything's landing perfectly for the Chargers. I felt like Brian Daboll would have been the perfect coach to develop Justin Herbert. I'm very disappointed that didn't happen. I'm very interested to see what happens moving forward with the Chargers. But the Chargers could have had a contending Super Bowl team if Justin Herbert, ends up in the right path, in the right scenarios. Just remains to be seen. I would have felt a lot more confident if Brian Daboll was the head coach of the Chargers.
Fair enough. I agree with you, though. I think the Chargers had a really good draft. Tom Telesco getting stuff done, and we'll see what Brandon Staley has. I think I've listened to him a few times, and I think he's a sharp guy. I mean, I agree. I tend to lean towards the offensive coaches in general, especially with a young quarterback to develop. But I think Staley's an interesting coach candidate. My biggest takeaway is I think that teams are maybe finally getting smart about running backs. Like, we had a class in which there were not a lot of good running backs, right? There was 3 that were legitimate starting caliber running backs for sure, and they went early as we expected. And then there was a couple kind of maybes, and they went in the mid rounds. And I think if this draft were a few years ago, all of these Kylan Hills and Canadian Olympian track star Chuba Hubbard and Kenny Gainwell, who's drafted after a kicker, and all of these guys would have been flying up the boards for no particular reason. And to see a team like the Bills, who had all this outside pressure, you got to take a running back. They're like, nope, we're good. The Dolphins, right? I mean, they have Myles Gaskin, and everyone was saying that they have to take a running back. They're going to take a running back. Nope, we'll take Jared Dokes, and we'll add Malcolm Brown, and otherwise we're fine with Gaskin and Ahmed. So, Falcons too. I think teams have recognized that. Oh, is this? Oh, how do you guys say Falcons? Is that what it is?
Foul.
You guys say Falcons?
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah.
Falcons. Every time you say Falcons, it takes me a second to think of what you're actually saying.
Okay, so
I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I mean, I know you've said it thousands of times on the show, and I said the same thing every time, but I really wasn't sure. What did you just throw at me?
It's a beer tab.
I felt it. It hit me in the chest.
Okay, I have good aim then. I guess whatever. The point is, I think like Buffalo, Miami, the Atlanta football team have done a good job of recognizing that they have fully viable starters. And I think that's the thing, right? The idea of running backs don't matter, maybe a little bit overblown, right? Of course, the Christian McCaffrey matters, the Dalvin Cook matters. But when you get on the board and the best running back available is Kylan Hill doesn't matter. So I think they look at it, they're like, are we just going to draft someone because we should? Or is Mike Davis just as good as anybody we're going to draft? And it turns out he is. So is Myles Gaskin, and so is Zach Moss. And I think that's maybe something that we're looking at is a move to either these truly difference-making running backs that transform an offense, or just taking what you can get at a very low price and getting serviceable production anyways with backs, that are at least talented in all phases, at least for the smart teams. Obviously,
I would be remiss to exit this podcast without bashing the Steelers.
I was going to say, except for the Steelers,
in round 1 with major needs, and then in round 2, with the linemen falling to them, take a tight end who profiles to Heath Miller. Like, this isn't like, I don't know why they drafted like they're going all in this year and they're going to win it. Like,
what the hell?
I'm just as a Bengals fan, I was thrilled like that they look like they don't know what they're doing. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I thought they're a clown show to me. The fact that like they could have gone with Eichenberg, I believe, in round 2, and there's someone else I forget who is still available to them at round 2. Yeah, the Freiermuth
Carmen still available?
No, we swooped him up.
I like Freiermuth. I think he's a good player, but that was such an unnecessary pick.
It's crazy to me. How many intermediate targets? How many short to intermediate targets do you need? Okay,
well,
now we have
when
Najee
Big
Harris.
Ben's a quarterback, you can't have anybody go more than 10 yards.
No, it's insane. I mean, Freiermuth, they have Eric Ebron. I don't think Freiermuth's going to be a factor remotely this year. I think he's fully a 2022 and onwards player. And I like Najee Harris fine too. Not as much as most people, but I still think he's good. I don't think he's bad. But Benny Snell averaged negative yards before contact last year. That's wild. Like, I think Benny Snell sucks, but he had no chance. Like, negative yards before contact, every time you get the ball, you're getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Give me a break. Najee Harris can average 3.2 yards a carry. It's going to be fine for fantasy. He's going to get fed with volume, but they should have 100% gone O-line catastrophic mistake. Taylor, where can people find you?
Right now, they can find me out on PFF looking up Miami's offensive line, how bad they're going to be. But usually I'm out on Twitter @_Taylor Cornell. The podcast I have been doing for the last month, 2 months, whatever it is, with my boy Air DJ. Can't Be Serious podcast. Find that out wherever you find this podcast because it's in the same little feed there. So we're all in one spot. But that's been a lot of fun because it's a extremely not serious podcast. So we just basically have a really good time for about 45 minutes to an hour once a week. So
absolutely. For the people that are still with us, for the people that watch this later on the YouTube.com, please check out Taylor's show. Really, really fun show. Really fun vibe. Love Taylor. Love DJ. We'll get DJ on the show at some point in the summer too, for sure. Absolutely love both of these guys and really happy to be, within the same circle as those folks. Make sure you're listening to You Can't Be Serious. And Chase, it's always a blast to be with you every Tuesday night and that beautiful beard. Where can we find you?
Oh, you guys can find me on the Twitter, as Shane would say.
On Twitter.com?
On Twitter.com, as Jacob would say. Twitter.com/ Now, you guys can join our circle _. You guys can also find me FF_intervention. You guys can find our content over there at Fantasy Football Intervention. YouTube.com/Fantasy Intervention as well. Please make sure you guys go hit subscribe, hit like, and then go check us out over there on Spotify. Fantasy Intervention over there on Spotify as well. Make sure you'll hit subscribe, please. Pretty please. We're going to have some things rolling out here. We're starting to get back in the groove. We have some guests booked out over the next few weeks, which I'm very, very excited about. God, man, I'm excited to get this thing back up and rolling again. And if anybody's looking to write or look to do any content like we're doing, make sure you have contact with us. You guys can shoot us an email over there at fantasyintervention@gmail.com. It's fantasy football intervention. I'm sorry, fantasy intervention@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chase. Shout out to Dustin, who's still with us. He's been here the whole 90 minutes. You're a hero, Dustin. Says, can't believe you didn't mention that a tight end went 101 in the CFL draft. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers actually have a farm team now in the Canadian Football League. They wear the same colors, too. They're called the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They have pretty much the exact same jerseys, and they went with a tight end, Jake Burt, not Jake Butt.
I hope he's generational. He's
generational for sure. And, I'm always trying to do generational things out here on Twitter.com. You can find me at FF_RTDB. You can find me, of course, every Tuesday night here on the Dynasty Intervention with Chase, Shane, and a bunch of pals that come in and out like Taylor Knight. You can find some of my writing out on playerprofiler.com. I will have a new article coming out on Rashad Bateman and why he should still be your wide receiver 2 in your rookie drafts. That's playerprofiler.com, all courtesy of playerprofiler.com. And you'll also be able to find, Chase doesn't even know about this yet, I'm going to be publishing a full rookie draft guide and how to maximize the market in your rookie drafts on fantasyfootballintervention.com. That'll be up in 48 hours. I'm midway through now. I've been keeping it a secret from Chase. So we'll be applying market principles that I like to write about on how to make sure that you're getting the most out of your rookie drafts. And last thing, I made a promise last week that if I hit 2K, I would be giving away one personalized individual Dynasty team breakdown to schedule with me. So I did a draw this afternoon. And Dominic Mana, you are the lucky follower. I imagine there's about a 0.01% chance you're listening right now, but you will get a DM from me tomorrow morning. Dominic, we'll get in touch and we'll sit down. We'll break down your team and your league and what I think is the best path for your team moving forward. So I look forward to chatting with you, Dominic. Congrats. If my services are worthy of congratulations, you certainly have them. So thanks a ton for hanging in the chat. Thanks for listening to the supersized post-draft episode. And we're going to be back here every Tuesday all summer with Dynasty Intervention with Chase and Shane, and we'll have some guests coming in and out. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have suggestions, make sure to hit me up on Twitter.com. Courtesy of Player Profiler.
Get out.